So our next last speaker is Dr. Katie Donovan, and she is the clinical director of immersive technology for the Innovation Digital Health Accelerator at the Boston Children's Hospital.
Thank you. So the bummer part about going last is you have 5 minutes to do your 20-minute talk. All good. And 20 minutes we can do this? Oh, I don't know. And I just found out there's no Santa Claus or Easter Bunny. So that's, so far it's been a struggle of the day. Yeah. Obviously, I'm a big Lego fan, so this is my excellent Lego headset in here. What I'm going to talk about today is actually kind of in companion with everything else, minus the traffic out there. Really kind of focusing on how we get our patients and our families involved in some of our designs at Boston Children's Hospital. So, the beginning here, this is, I don't even know when this was. Again, when I look at how we can use some of these technologies, I think about the patients and families first, and I think everyone in this room thinks about patients and families first. I also think about the pain points. I'm a crazy geek, and I love technology, but how are we going to use this well that it's impactful? And I think we all touched upon that today. New technology, like honestly, if you had like cologne that smelled like opening of new electronics, I'd probably be your friend for life. And in my world, it's always about curiosity. I'm curious about everything I do, and I just try to think of new and different ways of how we utilize these things. Oh, I have a screen right here. There I am looking over there. All right, so how many people have been to Boston? Okay, so you know Boston traffic. If you're familiar with the Longwood medical area, we have all of, particularly back in 2009, I should say, we had Boston Children's Hospital, Brigham's, and I'm reading them because they switched their names up. Joslin Diabetes, Beth Israel. I mean, this is all in pretty much a 1 mile radius. So you can imagine the hundreds and really thousands of patients that show up in this area daily. So one of the things that was happening back then, it was poor signage. So I was teaching a STEM class, and we decided that we were going to make a 360 environment to kind of showcase to people how to get there. And we were going to put some technology on there that they could press it, they could see how much the bus was, they could see where to eat, where to park, so people wouldn't get lost. We use, and I digress a bit, but I worked at Apple at the time, and I was still sporting this Samsung flip phone, which was literally my favorite Samsung phone ever. We wrote some code, and we created this 360 environment, so people could go on this website and be able to navigate of how to get to Boston Children's. This was built with patients from Boston Children's Hospital. Frank, it was horrible, but people loved it at the same time because this was new technologies that was introduced to them. So again, I put the Boston drivers on the bottom because I am definitely one of those Boston drivers. So the hard part about doing this is not Children's Hospital, but when we created this, we had to code something to make all the pictures flat. And I have to say, this was literally right before Google came out and took pictures of Boston, so this wasn't even out there yet. So we had to figure out how to actually adjust and make comments on this flat surface. So when we actually made it in a 360 environment, everything was off. So it took forever for these kids to do this, and they were just like such troopers as they did this. And this is stuff that is still used today, only better with better camera equipment. So goals for us when we talk about getting patients home, we want to understand the environment. This is something that people don't talk about in healthcare. Like, what does their environment look like? And I know you can speak to this. I mean, we have kids that we're sending home to homeless shelters, and it's just a tough environment for us to watch. So for us to understand this before we actually say, oh, here's 15 things that need to be plugged in that you're not going to have access to in these spaces, this is something that we think about. We want to prepare the entire family, so involving the patients, the siblings, grandparents, anyone who's in that home environment or is caring for those patients. We want to involve them and have them understand the expectations when they transition to home. Of course, everyone talks about this. I had to put that there. I think Children's paid me to do that, so whatever. Decrease readmissions. We don't want them admitted. Enhance, of course, the patient experience, which is what we're trying to do by including a lot of this, and allow families to be families. That last piece is something that we created with another program we developed. So Boston Children's, this I put on purpose. This is actually an older slide, but it was 2019, I think, and that number 73 is actually up to 84%. So you can kind of see the picture behind of this patient at home. These are chronically complex kids that are going home, having to set up basically ICUs in their house. So 84% of our patients are going home with a lot of these equipments, and we have this expectation that our families are clinicians and can care for these kids and be able to assess these kids, and we really wanted to try to make a difference with this. So the first thing we did is we created, and I'll also share that I also had a medical condition, still do have a medical condition. I had medical equipment in my house as a kid. My sister didn't know what it was. We had our toys moved out of the room. So there was a lot that went into the introduction to a lot of medical equipment in the spaces. So augmented reality, let's make some, kind of like the furniture. Let's put medical equipment in the room. So we created an app called Mark where we could put all sorts of medical equipment in the room so families understand, one, if they had enough space, they could hear the equipment, because that's something that people don't talk about. So like an oxygen compressor, for instance, is pretty loud, actually. So to understand that these sounds are going to come from that, even pumps are pretty loud with that constant motion. This was incredibly helpful. We went to our family advisory committee and asked for insights from them, and they gave us even more insights than what we built out. Fortunately, as a patient, I had that mindset as I was building, but as a parent, I didn't have that mindset because that wasn't my world there. They gave us some really great insights, and they gave us the stamp of approval, which was kind of cool. And then we also I think we came in second place for the Mass TLC Award, so it definitely got some play with that. And you'll see this trajectory as I talk about this to our next one. This, again, you can read. These are the insights, again, from the patients and families. Mostly the families giving us insights to this, but we also talk to our patients. Anyone who knows me knows it's going to be a little bit more delayed with our projects because I always have patients and families on them. So the Caitlin program was a result of some of this. This is Caitlin McCarthy. Her mom is actually one of our Family Advisory Council members who's a rock star. Caitlin was very sick, and mom called me after she went to the focus group for Mark and said, I really want to create a legacy project for my daughter. Can you help me? Please come to my house. You don't say no to that, so you go to her house. I saw Caitlin's space. I've met Caitlin before in the hospital, and I saw how amazingly organized this mom was, and was like, you need to package this up and show this to everybody who's for patients going home with complex cares. I think this would be huge. So we created the Caitlin program where we go into patients' homes, and I'll show you her space here. This is not in 360. We go into patients' homes. We use a 360 camera to collect this environment. First, we show them this, I should say. Give them ideas of how to set things up, how to, organize products, and, how to make it so if there was an emergency, you could get to the child quickly. Looking at all the safety considerations. We recently went in a home where there was no smoke detectors, so we were able to just, kind of push this forward. They are DME companies or device management companies that send equipment home with families. They just don't do it to this level. And by us going out to the patients and families' homes, they're having conversations with us that they probably should be having in the hospital environment, but feel so much more comfortable in their home environment that we're able to identify some of the challenges before they actually get home. So this is Caitlin and Caitlin's room, and we now go into patients' homes where we take these 360 images, we bring them back to the clinical team, we give best practices, we give ideas, we can show our social workers if they need to get anything added onto that. We can get cribs and things like that depending the need of the patients and families. This is something we are working that hopefully at some point in time, every patient that has complex medical care needs at Boston Children's will be discharged with this as an opportunity for them. And just to go back, because it is VR, we do put this in a VR headset for the clinicians as well so they can see this without being distracted by the clinical environment. So this is another patient's home actually that we went into. This is actually a really interesting case. This child went home for the first time with basically an ICU, as I mentioned, was in the hospital for 3 years. So this family was going home after 3 years into an ICU environment. So there was a lot of anxiety associated around this. And this is really how the program developed as we were creating the first Caitlin modules. one of the nurse practitioners said, "My patient needs this," and it just took off from there. These are some of the cameras that we use. The Insta360, if people are into this space, it's a very fancy camera. We end up using the small ones just for convenience and just a quick in and out, which is nice. So I'm also a facilitator for our teen advisory committee. So one of the projects that we worked on with the teens is kind of the same, and we talk about preparation. How do we get our kids involved? How do we prepare them? So they wanted to make some 360 images with education built in about the scariest places that they identified. And what was so great about this, they weren't the only ones who identified it. They actually brought the younger kids from around the hospital into this. And said, what do you find scary? So this is my buddy Andres, who's an anesthesiologist at Boston Children's, who kindly was, and you can see him up in the corner as my Lego person, because I like to subtly put that in. I probably shouldn't show that, but I do show that. But the kids were so engaged. And the cool thing about what they did is they also now, they're adding education, but they're using artificial intelligence to create a lot of the assets for this using Adobe products. So Adobe's working with the kids to do this. We've had a lot of different voices because Adobe's kind of in that space now, so it's getting a little silly right now. But this also goes back to the younger patients, so we can get insights from them as well. Because I think anyone who's in this space realizes the challenges of building for pediatrics sometimes is making sure that you check boxes for the younger ones as well as the older kids. And sometimes we're not always successful at that, but they're trying really hard with this. So we have the OR, radiology, MRI, in the emergency room, which if anyone is in this space right now knows how busy the emergency rooms are. So we call this Prep VR, and this will be built out. And I put this picture up here, and who mentioned, I think the folks from Yale mentioned this, how scary it is for folks when you mentioned that. The mask induction, we actually have an option so kids can see what that looks like, which is yes or no, they can see that. But not only was this powerful for our patients to see this, but when we brought this to our clinicians, they had no idea what this looked like from that perspective. So this was a really powerful thing for us to share back to our folks. Why does Kate Donovan have a picture of a bathroom on her slides? Yeah, right? Yeah, it's not, yeah. So interesting enough, again, this goes to not bringing your patients and families into the development. This Boston Children's does have psychiatric units. We have, I think, 3 locked down, 1 on site at the main campus. And we decided that we were going to educate folks by showing them the psychiatric unit if by chance they needed to be admitted there. So we took all of the images around there, but I didn't take a picture of the bathroom because in my head I'm like, no one wants the bathroom. And that was the only thing they asked for. When we showed it to them, it was like, we need to see the bathroom. What's the bathroom look like? I'm like, okay. So this was such a learning for me because I was like, you don't want to see a bathroom. It's clean. I made sure it was clean before I took that picture. So another thing that we've built out at Boston Children's, and this project is going on for a little bit, is what's called Health Voyager. And again, we had some kids involved in the development of this as well. This is for GI procedures specifically. And this actually integrates with our GI medical record that the physicians can do colonoscopies, upper endoscopies, and then be able to place spots basically in the colon where they have disease. And then it's kind of like Magic School Bus where the kids can kind of drive through this. Now we call this virtual reality, but is it truly virtual reality? I can put it in a VR headset, but basically for us, from a cost-saving things, we give them out, if you can see this, we give them like those little like fold-out lenses, the 30-millimeter lenses that kind of mimics that. But very educational for them. They can now explain the procedures that they had to their friends and families and explain their diagnosis a little bit better. And this has been really helpful moving forward. All right. The Holo Health. Now, I'm saying this because I'm going to talk in a minute about our experience with the Apple Vision Pro, because you can't come here and not talk about the Apple Vision Pro. But I got to give a little bit of props, and I know I'm probably like running here, but a little bit of props to Holo Health because they kind of, threw this at us, and I was pretty stoked about this. Again, this curiosity, how can we use this? And how many people have used the HoloLens? Like the field of view is really like terrible, but when you first were given it, you're like, whoa, this is cool. So I was in the whoa, this is cool. And I ended up going to a hackathon and building with some friends of mine, including patient and family. And we built out a solution for the home environment. This is actually one of my friends who looks so pale, and you'll understand, I literally taped a fake PICC line to him, and this is what he looked like after I did this. He's a developer, so if you wouldn't mind playing this. So this was in 24 hours we did this.
I'm going to watch a video prior to doing this so I can see what a PICC line actually is.
And again, we had no background
Okay,
in how to
before
do
we
this.
get started, I just want to make sure I know the supplies.
I thought he was going to die. I really was so nervous about him.
What is it?
So using gaze, using
What is it?
Cortara voicing, we thought we were building something awesome.
What is it?
Wait till you see the avatar I have in this. He just came from the club. You'll
Start.
see.
Next step.
So the idea was that families could go home with this bazillion-dollar device and be able to walk through a lot of this process.
Next step.
And it's always one of those things when you think of children's hospitals, each
Next
one of
step.
us do this a little bit different. So even when it goes to the visiting nurses, people seem to have that one thing off that it doesn't
Next step.
go with us here. You can barely hear the guy talking. I think I have a question now. You ready? Let's see.
You doing okay?
Look at him. Seriously.
Next step.
I wanted to take a second take, but I was so afraid he was going to pass
Next
out.
step.
I know.
Next
right?
step.
Flush with saline using a pulsing stop and start motion. Use the amount prescribed by your healthcare provider.
What's that?
How much medication?
17. 2016? See, he just came from the club,
Next
but he's
step.
helping me. You can stop that video.
Searing and scrub the hub.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah, this was 2017, and we actually won an award for this. Just believe it or not, as basic as that is. So again, we talk about, I know, right? I think they were in love at the fact that the dance guy came out to help me. There was limited options here, less than 24 hours. You can only do what you do. Uh-oh. Okay, which brings us all the way to what we refer to as Cyrano Health. So we have been very fortunate at Boston Children's to work with Apple to create what's called Cyrano Health. And I think a lot of folks have had the same opportunities. Cyrano Health for me was originally designed for nurses. And it was because if anyone's worked in the healthcare space, we know that there is some challenging in keeping our nurses in the clinical environment. We're really having, I would say probably 75% of nurses are 2 years and less as far as their experience is concerned. And when you think about their experience, they actually didn't have clinical experience while they were going through nursing school because of COVID. So they lacked that clinical environment as well. So we wanted to give them something that would support that. And Cyrano Health was one of our questions, or really one of our solutions for this, where they could learn how to use these pumps in a very contained environment, an engaging environment. This basically walks them through, there's a patient, a little patient information. They start, I think it's Vanco for this one, and they can set up the pump and make mistakes if they want to or not want to, but they can make mistakes in this simulated environment. But in my head, which I'm not predicting the future here, it's the Apple Vision Pro. Is anyone from Apple here? I'm probably gonna get in trouble. No. Apple Vision Pro, I worked for Apple for 6 years. So Apple Vision Pro, there's gotta be an Apple Vision that I think we could get into the home environment at some point. I'm not predicting their roadmap, but I'm hoping for that roadmap because I think being able to build these solutions for our patients and families to bring home is so exciting to me, as well as helping our staff at the bedside. But I really think that as we move forward and continue to build these solutions, taking our patients and families into consideration really is going to be number one with this. I think the Apple Vision Pro, and again, I'm not being paid, I swear, I think it's the worst Apple Vision Pro that will ever be made, and it's awesome. So that's very cool to say. Yeah, so this is, I know we're running out of time. See, I'm trying, right? I did, I know, you take your time, but I think we're good. I don't know. I have a little video of this. I think it will play, maybe. Okay. which is really weird to be able to play this video because this is the view from the Apple Vision Pro. This is what they see, but it's in the clinical space. So this is the fake, and they can engage with it, touch it, set it up. They have a little bit of sound. Haptics they don't have, obviously. But it looks weird for families to see that, right? But the field of view on the Apple Vision Pro, it's delightful. It's muscle memory. That's exactly what it is. That is weird. And it shows the eyes now, which I don't know if anyone's played with this. It actually shows the eyes now. So, all right, did it. Okay. Yes. So I'll also sell that we have a 1 o'clock session, a deep dive. If you guys have more questions, where this whole group's going to be there. I think I'm more excited to hear. I want to hear more about this. So.
Yeah, questions? One question?
Is Cyrano, is that the manufacturer of the equipment, or is it where does the name come
I did not pick the name.
from? Okay.
Okay, so I'm just seeing no crossies count. I did not pick the name. I work with a physician who had a vision of Cyrano Health, meaning that there's someone talking in their ear saying what to do. But isn't Cyrano a liar too? That's what, okay. So that was my thing, and I was like, okay.
Misleading.
Misleading, yes. There we go.
Another question.
Yes, please.
Thank you for showing your earlier work and with the MARC system. How do you incorporate social determinants of health, in terms of Boston and other big children's hospitals where we have a multitude of patients that have various social needs? For example, the room.
Yes.
Great, but I can see in many of my patient populations they live in much smaller living spaces, and how does that work?
That was actually one of the biggest things we got of feedback from our patients and families was, this is not what my house looks like. I'm in with 3 of my siblings. How do you do that? And that comes honestly from my experience as well, because I was sharing a space. So it's really taking that into consideration. Also, looking at different languages. We have a really large Arabic population at Children's. So Arabic, Haitian, and Spanish are kind of our top 3 languages. So pretty much everything that we do, we put into different languages with hopes to even do more. But it's not easy. It really isn't easy, but it allows our clinicians to see, again, what spaces they're going in. So it's, sometimes we can go into their spaces, see the environment, and say, this equipment's not going to work. What can we do? Can we reach out to another device company and see if we can get a smaller device? And that has happened on numerous occasions. So it does allow us that little bit of glimpse, and the families wouldn't have said anything if we didn't go into the space, which is, it's hard, right? You're trying to extract, but there's a lot going on in that space. So those are great questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so,
Yes. Oh, sorry.
yeah, we have to end here.
He doesn't
so-
want to hang with me anymore.
Yeah.
It's all good, Henry. I'm not hurt.
Thank you.
I'm impressed you guys stayed because Raphael is going on. Thank you, everyone.